Carlisle is a former professional footballer and an ambassador for the mental health charity Mind. His wife, Carrie, is similarly eloquent speaker on the subject of mental health. So today you get two for the price of one. Welcome, Clarke and Carrie.
Thank you very much. Well, look, we're short on time today, so we're going to get straight to the point. For those of you who don't know us, I'm not just some randomly selected Z-list ex-footballer and his journalist wife who's speaking to you. I'm a specifically requested Z-list ex-footballer and his journalist wife, and that is due to our experiences in life. We're talking about adverse mental health, and Johnny's delivery, if you missed it, if you got on late, please watch the recording. Absolutely fantastic words of wisdom from Johnny Jacobs. He talked you through a lot of the statistics that are incredibly troubling. They're traumatic, they're horrific statistics. Well, what we would like to share with you today is our experience of being at the adverse end, the crisis end of mental health. But more importantly, we want to talk to you about this statistic, that if you seek the right help at the right time, that you can come through that. And I myself, after living with 17 years of recurrent complex depressive disorder, I am now the most well that I have ever been in my life. And there's a way that we did that. And there are many learnings that we had along the way. And we want to share those with you very briefly. I was born in Preston, into a family that had very little or no money, and football was my escape from that. And to become a professional footballer was my dream. It was my connection with my father. That's where we got our quality time. I wanted to make him proud. And so when I achieved that goal and I became a professional footballer at the age of 17, it was incredible. My dreams were coming true. My life was taking off. I played 100 games at Blackpool FC. Yeah, I know it's Blackpool, but the tangerine looked good on me, And from there, I was bought by Queen's Park Rangers. Now, this was where my career was taking off, but I suffered the trauma that was the inception of my adverse mental health issues. I got a call up for England under 21s. I'm telling you how proud I was playing for Blackpool. Can you imagine how proud I was putting 3 lines on my chest, singing the national anthem, my mum, my dad and my granddad in the stands? This was the pinnacle of my professional career to that point. But then I encountered an injury. It was a night match against Fulham where I went in for a tackle with Rufus Brevitt and boom, I snapped the ACL, LCL, popliteus, ITB, rotated the fibular head, dislodged the nerve, ripped the hamstring off my right knee. The surgeon believed that my career was over, said I wouldn't be able to walk again without a stick. This tore me apart. This was 2000. My identity was inextricably linked with football. Not only that, I was brought up in that archaic view of masculinity. Society at the time didn't know about talking therapy, didn't think about engaging with me about the psychological impact of this injury. And so, just like Sabina was alluding to earlier, I drank my way through it. That was my way with dealing with the situation. And in that haze of alcohol, I believed that I was worth nothing to anybody. And so I took an overdose, 56 coproximol, washed them down with a can of Carling, waited for the inevitable. That was my first suicide attempt. Well, I'm blessed in as much as I got back to my career. I did get fit. I got saved in that suicide attempt, taken to the hospital, stomach pumped, back into training, but no support network. The way that I dealt with it was by pretending it never happened. And so there's no surprise that over the subsequent, 10 years that my behavior was erratic. People say that depression is an invisible illness. Well, it isn't. My behaviors were screaming. And my behaviors were that every time I felt that my identity was threatened, that my career was threatened, the fear rose in me that I experienced back in 2000. And I did everything that I could to avoid it. So sporadically, I was having outbursts of destructive behavior, you know, really irrational behavior. And this was going alongside a career that was going from strength to strength. There are two misconceptions about depression. One is that it's a sign of weakness. That's so untrue. For the rest of my career, I went on to play 500 games. I played in the Premier League. We beat Manchester United, reigning champions, at Turf Moor when I was playing for Burnley. Forget my grandchildren. I'm going to tell your grandchildren about that. Some kid from Preston, I got to the playoff final 3 times with Burnley. I was man of the match in front of 90,000 people. Alongside this, I was chairman of the PFA. Alongside this, I wrote a book. I presented 2 documentaries for the BBC. You know, I studied for a degree in broadcasting and went into commentary. Commentated at the World Cup final in Brazil at the Maracanã, and I won Countdown. You know, it's not young accountant of the year, Johnny, but you know, have you got a Countdown teapot? No, I have. And all this was while I was living with recurrent complex depressive disorder. The point I'm trying to make is that I achieved these things in spite of my struggles. Now, after 3 years and my last active suicide attempt in 2017, I've engaged with the right support. I've engaged with professional help. I've taken my medication. I've engaged in intensive talking therapy, cognitive analytical therapy it was for me. And I've got the right loving support network around me that have seen me come out of that situation. If I'd have had these things in 2000, I don't care to imagine what I could have achieved. But I have them now, and they're available to you now. And I've got to tell you, I am the most capable I've ever been. I'm the most well that I've ever been. And despite this global pandemic and lockdown, I've made the most progress on my journey in these last 6 months. That's available to you too. So before my wife tells you about her experience of that journey, I just want to say to you, my 2 takeaways. If any of those thoughts resonate with you, that you know, you put your game face on for people, but behind there you think, oh, if you only knew what I was thinking. If you're going to work and you have that fraudulent charlatan complex that, oh, I'm going to get caught out today. If you think that things are chipping away at your identity and you're not sure how to resolve it, take action now. You don't have to be like me. You don't have to tell everybody, but it's imperative that you tell somebody. The other message I want you to hear, if that's not you, but somebody gives you the privilege of sharing with you their trusted information, do you know what to do with that information? We're beyond the notion that it's good to talk. Now we need to be confident and competent with what people talk to us about. Do you know the right places to signpost people? Do you understand that it's not your responsibility to fix them? It's your responsibility to take them by the hand to the support systems that will fix them. And that person has to engage themselves. So thank you very much for listening. And this incredible woman
is about to talk very, very fast. No, actually, I'm not even going to explain why I'm here. I'm going to show you. How many times do you think you've tried to kill yourself?
4.
No. Okay, that's all right then. It's 5. And I can't give you any other explanation that can better describe why I'm here, because this illness, it warps your mind, it warps your perception. And this is from a non-expert and a non-expert. So much that Clarke has gaps in his memories. He has gaps in his experience. He will tell you the truth, and it is the truth as he sees it. And he has tried to take his life on 5 separate occasions. So I'm here to sort of bridge that gap. Also, I don't want to die. Ever would be great, but I don't want to die. And I certainly have never thought about killing myself. There is a chasm of misunderstanding there. I know my husband. I know his signals. I know his symptoms. I know his language, and I can give you a few of those that are generic, that many people experience. But there is this chasm of misunderstanding between someone who is so afraid to die and someone who's tried to take their own life on 5 occasions. And we have to bridge that. We have to bridge that with talking. We have to bridge that with honesty. We have to bridge that with bravery and vulnerability and sharing. We overshare. You don't have to do that, but it's true. We have learned so many things, and probably one of the most important things that we've learned is that silence is the oxygen that suicidal thoughts need to turn into a fire. They need it. And you have to go against every single instinct. And Clarke hasn't. We sit here as people who haven't done this properly. We don't sit here as experts. I sit here as someone whose introduction to suicide and mental health awareness was a suicide note from my husband when I was 5 months pregnant. And words are all I have. And I can't even describe to you how saturated in regret I was when I thought that my husband was dead. Have you ever had the worst day of your life and the best day of your life be the same day? Because that's a day. That's a day, I'm telling you. I was so convinced he was going to die. I was so convinced he was dead. And it just goes to show that your facts, they're not concrete, they're just opinions. We have come a very, very, very long way. And actually 100 million people have come with us in the past 3 years, because that's how many people have downloaded these little interviews we give. Isn't that crazy?
It's amazing.
Oh my goodness. We do it in real time, and we just say what we know. When Clarke started to get better, and he did very much start to get better, I started to decline. Now, I don't have a mental illness, so why was I experiencing anxiety attacks? Why was I so sure there was this gossamer thin line between disaster and where I was stood? It was a fact that Clarke was going to die. It was an absolute fact. So I went to see my GP. He was about 108 years old. He was like Mr. Burns off The Simpsons, and he was such a sweetheart. He said, "You don't have a mental illness, Mrs. Carlisle." I was like, "Obviously, I know that. Hello." He said, "But you have experienced trauma, and I bet it's not your first one because it's affected you quite badly." And he was right. I nearly died in my 20s from a virus, and I had to learn how to walk again. And I saw the world as a really scary place, and I never got help for it. And from then I really realised, and he said this thing that stuck with me forever, which is so important for 2020, or every single one of us experienced 2 or 3 big traumas in our life, totally subjective to us. Divorce, bereavement, job loss, your husband trying to kill himself, your baby nearly dying when she was born, or nearly dying of a virus yourself. All these things are subjective, and they affect your brain chemistry. People say to me all the time, "How could your husband do that to you?" Strangers in the street will say that. That's okay. How could your husband do that to you? They wouldn't say that if he'd had cancer or diabetes or any myriad of illnesses. My husband didn't do that to me. If you're experiencing suicidal thoughts, you're not doing it to anyone. This illness, it's not in your mind. Sabina will tell you much better than me. It's in your brain. And I get that now. He didn't want to leave me. His brain was really poorly. I want to leave you with one statistic, because we get told loads of scary statistics. The number 23, that's our lucky number as far as I'm concerned, because it took only 23 days for my husband to go from being so suicidal he wasn't allowed shoelaces in hospital in case he hung himself with them, from being so suicidal he couldn't be trusted with a razor, from being so suicidal he had to have someone constantly stood at his psychiatric hospital door. Yet 23 days later, he was able to leave the most well he'd been in years and start engaging with therapy. 23 days, there is hope. You can be better. We are better. Also, I want to point out that no matter how many people we talk to, my husband, I had to sit him down and say to him at the beginning of lockdown, "You're not feeling well, get your butt on the phone to a therapist." So really, we are still learning, and that's why he's made this progress. We don't know everything, we just know some things, and we're eager to know more. Thank you.